Welcome to a long overdue event report for Battles at Maker Faire Orlando 2017. This was a 2-day event at the end of October that had robots ranging from 150 grams up to 220 pounds. 2-day event, as the name implies, held in conjunction with the Orlando Maker Faire, and without a doubt, one of the largest events in the Southeast. Since it has been so long and I don't really remember all the fine details of things, I am going to break from my traditional format a little bit and reference some video clips that I took for my other YouTube channel while I was actually at the event. So it's a little more vague because I didn't want to go super in-depth with robot names and things like that on that channel, but I'll use past me to help current me out a little bit here. Hey, cool, you can't even see me on here, from what I can tell. But right now, I am proving that I am a complete idiot. Last week, I was in Denver, Colorado for the Denver Maker Faire, more specifically, SparkFun AVC's combat robots, and now, less than a week after that, I am back in Florida, heading down to Orlando for the Orlando Maker Faire and its combat robot event. I didn't really have much time at all to fix robots in between both weeks, so they're both running pretty ragged for this event. So we'll see how that goes. So my first fight was up against Trilobiter, and I think I can say that I did a little better against that bot than I had the last time we fought. The last time the robot ended up in 2 completely separate pieces, so I really couldn't have done much worse. But the fight started out okay. We kind of kept going head-to-head, or as head-to-head as you can go with a full-body spinner. But I was able to keep the weapon where I wanted it to be. I was able to kind of deflect some of the hits with my front wedges, but I think it all went wrong when Trilobiter managed to get one good hit in, kind of sent me spinning across the arena. And it looks kind of like after that hit, I was never really able to line myself back up as well as I had originally. So I was kind of feeding in the corners of the wedges that were more vulnerable as opposed to the front end, that is what I actually want to hit with. I flipped around a couple more times. I believe at this point the Lexan on my right side was actually shattered, and then the next hit flipped me over on my back. Fortunately, I was kind of in the corner and my spinning blade was able to knock me back upright. Then I came back in again and managed to get flipped a second time, and while I was trying to right myself, another hit separated my battery pack from the robot. I really need to get top armor that actually stays down and doesn't let things randomly fly out of it. And I ended up losing the match because my battery was out. There wasn't anything else I was going to do at that point. I believe during this fight, I also lost a sight of drive. I know I'd gone into the event needing replacement motors, and then after I got those, I remember trying to get more, so I'm pretty sure that fight I actually did lose at least one side of drive, maybe both by the time the fight was over. So my next fight was up against Project Terminus. Last time I fought Project Terminus was during the Rumble of Clash of the Bots earlier in the year, so this time I actually got a real one-on-one fight. I was joking that what was probably going to happen was we were both going to spin up, he was going to hit me and just launch me right into the pit. And it turns out I was right. Now, I believe most of the damage done to Demon Spawn was done during those 2 actual matches as opposed to the Rumble. So I think now is a decent time to look at all the damage on the bot. As you can see, it is missing the Lexan side of armor here on its right side, or the robot's right side, our left. And I think the little rip there in the titanium, I think that was Trilobiter. Like I said, it's really hard to tell now looking back at it without like doing a frame-by-frame comparison with the video I took from the previous event. Another crazy thing is there is a little bit of a bend to my weapon. I believe that was Project Terminus. I could be wrong. And definitely is some wobble in there too now. So that bearing's probably shot. I have plenty of weapon discs. Oh yeah, you can really see the bend there. Yep, there is a bend. So that I'm gonna obviously replace. Once I'm kind of running low on these discs that I had made, I'll probably go have it cut out of something a little more robust than just stainless. Because yeah, I'm regretting that decision. So maybe some AR400 or some tool steel or something. The other thing I have happening is there's a lot of separation between the base plate and the rest of the robot. That's not good. I'm probably going to get some longer screws. I think part of the problem is they're so short that there's no second chance. As soon as they start moving away from each other, the whole thing just kind of comes apart. So that's not really great. I mean, overall, the robot is in okay shape for as much as this body's been through. And one fight I almost forgot here for Demon Spawn was a grudge match up against the robot Double Crosser. He had asked me to fight his robot after we were both eliminated from the event. I ended up running Demon Spawn's weapon a little slower than normal, and actually found out it hits really well at that speed. So I ended up getting a better grip off the teeth than I'd even expected to. But at first, I was having trouble getting under his wedge when we went head to head. And then I got around to the side of him and threw him up in the air a little bit. And then I got another kind of solid hit in on him, and he tapped out. But it was definitely interesting to learn how to use my weapon a little better, if not by accident. So both my official fights were on day 1, but day 2, I was able to compete in the Beetleweight Rumble. And as usual, the Rumble was chaos, but maybe not quite as much chaos as usual. So I can kind of give you a slightly better idea of what happened than usual. The beginning of the Rumble was really just me trying to hit anything with a nice rectangular edge to it. So I went after Hexy's Revenge, I went after XK1, just anything that I thought I could get a nice bite on. I think the wedges were so screwed up by this point, it was really hard getting anything up them. Eventually I did get a good ram and hit in on XK1, and then for some reason I thought it was a good idea to go up against Dead End, which is kind of dumb on my part because I always usually end up in a bad state after fighting that robot, but I guess I just wanted to fight him. So I went head on with him. I believe another robot came in at the same time and kind of pushed me into his blade. That sent me flipping across the arena on my back. And then I found the fatal flaw with this new disc design. I guess before, when Trilobiter had flipped me, my disc was still spinning at a decent speed, and I landed near the wall, and I was able to get back right side up. In this case, in the middle of the floor, with no speed really going on the disc, I was stuck, unable to right myself. So a lot of the rest of the Rumble was me trying to go to walls and flip myself over unsuccessfully, trying to do anything I could to get this robot back right side up. Eventually I resorted to trying to ram into Dead End, but I kept having trouble actually getting Demon Spawn to Dead End. But I was really just hoping maybe another good hit from him would flip me back right side up. But never made it. Spent the whole rest of the fight like a semi-mobile turtle. Never really took much damage, but never really got into the fight as much as I wanted to. On the plus side, I could say Demon Spawn was not in the pit, and it was still moving by the end of the match. It just wasn't really participating. So next up, we'll look at the fights for F13. And F13, honestly, I think took a lot more punishment at Spark Fun AVC than Demon Spawn did. So I was going in even rougher with this robot. I didn't even really do anything to it before the event. I think I made sure it was running and reassembled what had to be reassembled from being in the suitcase and just went on with it. And the 15-pounders at Maker Faire Orlando were being run round robin, so basically everybody got to fight everybody at least once. And my first fight was up against the one robot I was actually pretty scared of, Animosity. I believe that was the only robot in the division that had a spinning weapon and could actually do some serious damage outside of just ramming you to death. So the fight started off like every other fight with F13 ever has for the existence of this robot. I just kind of tried to smack him with a machete, pretty unsuccessfully for the most part. But it did seem like he was having some drive issues. Every so often it looked like he got hung up on the floor or just kind of stopped moving momentarily. The top of his robot was exposed, so I kind of kept trying to line up the machete either to chop down or just to spear that open area, just to maybe try to disable him. I did manage to feed my blade into his spinner a little bit just to make some sparks and get chopped up some. But as the fight went on, one of my sides of drive started to respond sluggishly, and then at some point he lost one of his wheels. So we kind of continued on this one wheel apiece fight. At some point, a little plume of smoke came out of F13, letting me know that something had gone a little more wrong than just having a wire disconnect. I managed to actually get my machete in between Animosity's frame and his one remaining wheel and was trying to kind of pry that wheel off with the machete. I never really succeeded in getting it off by that method, but eventually it did kind of just fall off on its own, so I don't know if I loosened it or it was just a coincidence, but it was kind of a lackluster end to that fight. After the fight, the robot was super toasty. I actually ran with it outside because I wasn't really sure what had smoked and I was kind of afraid of what it could have been, but I got outside to find out it was definitely just one of the drive motors had basically just melted itself. The gearbox had seized up and the motor just crapped out on me. So while I hadn't lost anything super expensive on the robot, I also lost one of the most vital components to the whole thing. Actually, everything's kind of vital because there's not really much in this robot, but it meant I had to go on for the rest of the fights with just one wheel drive. The next fight was up against the other robot I really didn't want to have to fight Shaboom Box, the powerful lifting scoop. And with one-wheel drive, it was kind of just a one-sided fight. He was able to go and slap me around with that scoop and the lifting arm and threw me across the arena a little bit. And really, we'd been fighting right by where I'd started because I hadn't been able to get much anywhere in the arena. But at the end of the fight, he managed to scoop me up, drive me all the way across the arena, and I think he put me either behind the barrier or just on top of the barrier in a position where I couldn't drive off of it, and left me for dead. So a very quick fight, but I always love watching Shaboom Box throw F-13 around. It's just a really enjoyable thing, and I think F-13 is just exactly the wrong shape, or the right shape, depending on who you are, to get scooped up and just smashed around by Shaboom Box. So that was the end of day one. I honestly can't remember. I believe the next fight I had with Sonic the Hedgehog was postponed, and I can't remember if that was supposed to originally happen that first night or if it was the second morning we postponed it. But I know at one point the two of us got in the arena and he box rushed me and hit the wall in about 2 seconds and lost all power, and we decided to just go and do the fight over again because that was kind of nothing. So I was able to go home and try to figure out some solution to my motor problems. Like I said, I didn't have any backups. I don't think anybody at the event had Team Tiki motors that they could let me use. So I ended up going and taking some of the Harbor Freight motors I had, which were a little different. I think the pinion is different on it. So I brought that. I brought the gearboxes back with me the next day. Basically, I spent the next morning trying to cobble together a motor, just this Frankenstein weirdness that would hopefully at least work. And I got something that kind of worked. When we started the fight with Sonic the Hedgehog, I was able to drive full force. I was nice and speedy around the arena. I was able to smack the machete around. Unfortunately, just another design I wasn't really able to do much to. His front wedge kind of fit perfectly underneath F-13, and it really just put me at a severe disadvantage every time we went head to head. And I was never really able to ever get around him to do anything. Partway through that fight, that Frankenstein motor gave out, leaving me with one-wheel drive yet again. At least this time it wasn't so scary when I saw something smoking because I knew exactly what had happened this time. And I will say in both situations, I'm really happy it was the motor and not the speed controller. But ended up losing that fight by judge's decision. So next up, I had to fight Clown Fiesta, yet another powerful wedge. And with one-wheel drive, yet again, there wasn't much I could do. I just kind of got slapped around the arena for most of the fight. And then after two pretty good back-to-back slams across a good portion of the ring, I ended up starting to lose my other side of drive. It would kind of come and go intermittently. And I think I almost got counted out at one point, and then I got moving again. And I think one or two other times after that, it stopped moving and maybe regained life. Eventually, the robot was completely unresponsive, so I basically tapped out. I believe what happened in this situation is this is the side of the robot that was damaged at Spark Fun, and the whole motor gearbox assembly was starting to rotate freely inside the frame. I think it was starting to pull its own wires out. I don't remember for sure, but I think that's actually what caused this rather than another seized motor. My last fight of the day, or at least I think it was supposed to be the last fight, was supposed to be up against Godzilla. Yet another wedge, but for some reason, I think there was a decent sized gap in the schedule, and they were just trying to find robots to kind of put on a show so the audience didn't all leave. So I was asked to fight Animosity again, and that fight was really slow to start. I was missing a side of drive. It looked like he was either having some drive problems or he was just having issues with the weapon at full speed, getting over to where I was. And my strategy, honestly, was just to try to stick my weapon into his blade, just to try to put on some semblance of a show. And eventually, after a while of trying, I did manage to kind of make good contact with his weapon. And after his weapon kind of ground on the machete for a bit, all of a sudden F-13 just stopped working again. So I was counted out pretty quickly. I think in this case, it was the second drive motor burning out, and I ended up having to forfeit the match I was supposed to have against Godzilla, so I never got that fight in for the day. That is a wrap on Maker Faire Orlando. That was a stressful couple of days, especially after just getting back from Colorado on Monday. There was just probably more than I should have done to myself for my own sanity's sake, but it was very, very fun. There's not many events in the world at this point that run the large 220-pound robots, and to have one 2 hours from home, I feel like I gotta go. So yeah, I believe as of my last video, when I was giving you an update, I said my 3-pounder had lost 2 fights in a row. To try to make myself feel better, I will state that the 2 robots that beat me ended up getting first and second place. So at least I fought the best, at least at this event. So that's it for Battles at Maker Faire Orlando 2017. Definitely did not do well. I wasn't really expecting to. And hopefully next time, if I have an opportunity to do events like this, they won't be quite so back-to-back, because I think that really just kind of hurt me in the end. The event itself was a lot of fun. I always have fun seeing the big robots fight. It was cool to finally be able to compete in the larger arena for once. I was a little disappointed with some of the things that Maker Faire itself put into effect as far as their rules go. At the end of day one, I was trying to pack up my stuff. I wasn't entirely sure I was even going to show up for day two, just because it was a 2-hour drive. I didn't book a hotel in Orlando. It was kind of last minute that I was even going to go. I had to come home and take care of my dog. And as I was trying to get my stuff together and get out the door, I was stopped by one of their officials and told that I couldn't leave until, I think it was like 8 o'clock or something, which was a couple hours away at that point, I believe. And they gave me some excuse that the event was still going on, even though at least our portion of the event was not. So I put my stuff back, assuming he meant I couldn't leave with my stuff. And I decided to leave the stuff overnight. I'll come back the next day, and went home. And then the next day, they actually clarified the rule, and apparently their policy was that if you leave before the event was over, you will be banned from future events and all kinds of garbage like that. And at that point, that just kind of pissed me off a little bit. I feel like that's a really dumb rule. Yeah, they're providing a space for us to do this in, but also it's not like they're paying us to be there, so I feel like those should kind of cancel each other out, and you should give people a little more leeway than that. But yeah, that's me being grumpy and ranting over. But anyway, so the future of these two robots. Demon Spawn, I am about to tear apart and start reworking for its next event. I think it's going to be more of an upgrade than a full rebuild at this point, but I know a full rebuild is probably coming sooner than later. F-13, definitely getting a full rebuild. I believe the drive motors I have been using are no longer available, and I'd actually like to go with something a little more robust than drill motors. But at this point, I'm kind of stuck with trying to decide if I want to keep it as F-13 and keep it as a thwack bot and something simple, or if I want to invest a little more and make something a bit more complex, maybe with an active weapon. I haven't decided, so I'm going to put F-13 aside for a little bit while I figure out what I want to do with it, figure out how much money I want to put into it, and I'll get Demon Spawn and maybe another smaller bot ready for small bots of mass destruction in less than a month. So I gotta get working. And just to give you a quick idea of the guts of Demon Spawn while it's apart, this is pretty much it as far as mechanical or armor pieces go. I found out that the snap hubs got pretty torn up during this event, so they might need to be replaced. Here's my titanium armor on its own, and the Lexan armor. I kind of just ran one of each for this one. Obviously the weapon, I already showed how torn up that is. And then we pan up here, we have the guts of the robot, the two drive motors, the ESCs, the weapon motor, the switch, the receiver, and the battery there on the charger. So not a whole lot in this whole robot, but I figure I might as well film it while it's apart.